Recording has started.
Alright, sir.
So nǹkan la fẹ́ ṣe ni a fẹ́ ní input méjì. Input méjì àti button méjì. Or let's do this way. A button with its inputs. So
Honestly, ibi tí mo bá dé nìyẹn o, kó tó dàrú.
okay.
Ọ̀gá,
Yes, sir.
ibi tí mo bá dé nìyẹn kó tó dàrú.
Okay.
You can even see my screen.
Ibi tẹ́ bá HTML kọ́ lẹ́yìn ṣé nìyẹn.
Mo ti ṣe náà lára ẹ̀.
Kí lẹ sọ?
Ààrẹ lára ẹ̀ sá.
Ẹ try lóòótọ́. Ẹ try gan. Okay. So nǹkan la fẹ́ ṣe ni input tàbá ti kíkọ́ lórí but okay ó dàbẹ́ ń share screen yẹn àbí.
Mo ní ara ẹ̀ lára ẹ̀.
Okay. Now
HTML is part of it.
àbí o torí pé HTML class ni.
Okay, sir.
Okay, kan la fẹ́ ṣe ni pé a máa type value sí ní input a máa tẹ set value tàbá ti tẹ set value a sọ fún wa pé value set successfully then a máa type another value sí ní input tẹ́lẹ̀ a wá tẹ check value tí nǹkan tá a bá tẹ̀ sí ibi tó bá ti jẹ́ the same pẹ̀lú nǹkan tó wà ní bíbá a sọ fún wa pé a gbé correct sínú div let's put a div there tí ó bá ti the same a fi incorrect sínú div ẹlẹ́ so let's give this input id we can call this first imp then we can call this second one second imp. So let's add event to this and click. So I'm going to call on a function called setValue. So let's get the function together. Should I get there?
Yes, sir.
So when we click on this, the first thing is let's get whatever is inside this input and alert it. So let's say variable my first imp equals to first imp dot value. So we can now say alert my first imp. So let's do that. Let's go to the browser and let's on it, go live. So if I type anything here, let's say this is Taye, and I click on this, what's the alert Taye? Next is, instead of alerting hits, we want to do something. We want to now make sure that instead of alerting this, we alert value set successfully. Value set successfully. Then next, we want to clear the input so that there will no longer be anything within that input. So we can now say first imp dot value equals to empty string. So with this now, immediately we click on this button, we are going to set the value of this my first imp to be the value of this. It will alert value set successfully. Then it will clear whatever is inside this input and turn it back to an empty string. Any question?
No question so far, sir.
Okay, let's sign it. Let's say Kenny. We click on this. Value set successful. Once I close it, go to clear input. Good. Next is this. We want to now make sure that when we click on this second one, it will check whatever is inside this first one and compare it with what we have inside this. And if they are the same, it will tell us correct. If they are not the same, it will tell us incorrect. So let's do that together. So we're going to say and click. We can now call on a function called checkValue. So let's get the function together. So this is function checkValue. So this function now, we need to first get whatever is inside this second one and compare it with whatever is inside the first one. So let's do that together. We can now say variable second, let's call it my second imp. My second imp equals to second imp.value. So what you are doing here is we are getting whatever is inside this second one, Abina,
Yes, sir.
and we are setting that. Now this is where it now gets so interesting. We want to see if whatever is here is the same as this, right?
Okay.
That's what we want to do. We want to see, because if we try to say, if we want to try to compare this with whatever we have inside this input, it's not going to be the same, because remember, we cleared it immediately. Abina. Immediately you set the value, you turn it back to an empty string, right? Try and get there. Hello, Mr. Blessing.
I lost you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but I lost you momentarily.
Okay, let me go back. I said when we click on this function, on this button we call
Yes,
on
sir.
this function check value.
Okay.
This we get whatever is inside that the second input and set it as variable my second IMP. So are we together?
Okay.
Okay, sir. So we want to now check if this my second IMP, if it's the same as this my first IMP.
Okay.
And I said we can't compare this my second IMP with what we have inside this input. We are not going to do that. The reason is that at this particular point on line 20, we are changing the first IMP back to an empty string. Hope you understand. We are changing it back to an empty string. Shane, follow me. Hello, Mr. Blessing.
Hello, sir.
Ṣé kọ́ọ̀lù wọlé lọ́dọ̀ yín ni?
Kọ́ọ̀lù wọlé.
Kí ló wá ṣe nẹ́tíwọ́ọ̀kì yín? Mo kàn fi kò bóyá kọ́ọ̀lù wọlé
Mo
gan.
ń gbọ́ mi.
Okay,
Kọ́ọ̀lù wọlé o.
okay. So back to what I was saying. I said we can't compare this my second IMP. I'll compare more input C. Shall I understand? I'll compare more value.
Because of the line 20.
Because of line 20, 13 dakwada C, empty string. So it's going to be empty. So, but instead, we want to compare it with this, my first IMP. Shall I understand? Okay, but la save versi. Go to the pay a clear.
Okay.
Variable la save versi. So we want to compare them together. But if you come to this place and we say if my first IMP equals to my second IMP, Omato back error. The reason is because my first IMP is a local variable to this set value. So this function does not have access to it. This check value does not have access to it. Have you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for that reason, we will now leave this one out of this place. I'm gonna leave it.
Okay.
So we now make it a global variable. Instead, we will now say var my first IMP. We understand it, sir?
Okay, we will only declare it. We will not assign anything to it.
Yes. Now, you might make a mistake of writing something like this. You might make a mistake of doing something like this. If you do it like this, it's not going to give you a result. The reason is this. If you do it like this, what happens is that when the page loads the first time, when you run it on the browser, you know your code is from the top to the bottom, have you?
Yes, sir.
So, load. Now, when it gets to this place, in line 17, immediately, it will go to the first IMP.value as I was in input. I'll log back and assign it as the value of my first IMP. Do you understand it, sir?
Okay.
And remember, when you load this the first time, this first IMP.value will still be empty string because I didn't feel anything in there. I'm talking about when you run it when you run it on the browser now. Instantly, when it gets, this is not inside any function because it's outside, it will quickly go to this first IMP.value and get the value inside and assign it to this. And because it is still empty at that point, my first IMP will be empty string. Do you understand it?
Okay.
So, when you now click on this button, it will now alert value set successfully. Then, change this back to empty string. That is, change the value inside this back to empty string. But don't forget that this one will also be empty string because the value was set when you load the page the first time. Change here.
Okay.
So when you now click on this second button, this check value, it will now try to say if my first IMP, which is actually an empty string, if it's the same as this, which will not be correct. Shall I understand it better?
Okay.
So instead of doing it this way, what we can just do is this. We'll copy this one out of this place. Then so by declaring this like this, you are declaring it as a global variable so that you'll be able to make use of it inside this function.
Okay.
Then you have this set value function. This set value function, now when you click on the button, it will now change the value of whatever is inside my first IMP. It will set the value. You know, initially it will be undefined. Now my first IMP will start as undefined.
Okay.
So when you click on this button, it will get whatever is inside first IMP.value and set it as my first IMP.
Okay.
So that when you now click on this button, check value, it's going to run the codes here. So it will get second IMP.value and assign it as my second IMP. Then it will now say my first IMP, which is whatever you set here. You know, it's a global variable, so this function can now have access to it. The reason for setting it as global. Okay.
If I understand it very well now, that is like a kind of backdoor method of setting value into a global variable right from inside a function.
Yes, so that we're able to make
And the
use of
value
it.
that the function sets will be accessible to other functions.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's powerful
Yes,
and cunning.
that was why I sent that video to you to watch it. We did something like this inside that video. Yeah, although we didn't use it to do this particular task, but I explained something like this in that video on global and local variable.
Yeah.
So with that now, this function can now check it. If they are the same, you can now say, put the result inside this div. So I'm going to give this an ID, and I'll call it results. So we can now say, if they are the same, results dot inner text is equal to correct else results dot inner text will be equals to incorrect, and we are done.
Okay.
So let's go. In this place, I can put James, set value, value set successfully. Come here, put another thing, let's say Tolu, incorrect. So let's now put this as James also, correct. Let me ensure this one is cleared. Let's ensure we clear this one. So we can say second IMP.value equals to empty string itself. So let's go to the browser now and run it. Let's say click on this value set successfully. Then come here, type the incorrect, value incorrect, GD incorrect. Let's not type lesson. Correct. Any question?
No question so far. Wow.
Ṣé a lè tẹ̀síwájú kan báyìí? We still need to do some task around this place. to show that
Okay.
we understand this thing very well.